Welcome back, guys. NBA previews. Today we are doing the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Jiarmani DePena. Matt Hanifan is with me today talking about the Philadelphia 76ers. Matt, I want to get your take on the 76ers, but first and foremost, I want to see how you're doing. How's life? Like, just what's going on in the world of Matt Hanifan right now?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It is currently raining outside,
Hell yeah.
where I'm at, in an undisclosed location. I'm not going to tell the people where I live, but it is currently overcast and raining outside over here. I mean, I guess I'm on the West Coast. For people who are watching probably know that. But no, man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Basketball season less than a week away. The
I
NBA
can't wait.
season, I can't wait. I know today we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, who had a pretty active offseason. Like, when I say pretty active offseason, they entered the offseason with like 2 active players on their roster. Now they have a full roster of players. Some of them re-signed, some of them, whatever the case is. They brought new pieces in there, but no, man, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Matt, I'm doing great. Probably a little less great talking about the Knicks earlier and talking about the Sixers now. It's like a bunch of Celtic rivals, but I mean that's neither here or there. But I'm doing great. Let's talk about the 76ers. Now, I know you mentioned earlier the offseason moves. I mean, like, just off the top of my head, and like if I'm remembering, I mean, like their peak offseason acquisition was bringing in Paul George. So like I wanted to pick your brain of what you saw from the Sixers last season, because they got bounced out by the Knicks, and Tyrese Maxey had himself a great season. Embiid had a great season, but he only played 39 games. So I want to pick your brain and kind of like I want you to ball up like what you felt about the Sixers last year, and kind of like how like this transition going into this year is kind of pretty much just talk about Sixers, how you feel about the Sixers last year, and then we'll make our way into how the Sixers look now.
14th in offense, 11th in defense. I didn't feel terrible. I mean, obviously, you win 47 games, you're in a playing game. When you have Joel Embiid, obviously you only played 39 games because of the torn meniscus. Originally, when the torn meniscus was reported, I was just assuming that he was done for the season, especially for a guy. I mean, I know the meniscus. I believe I'm not a doctor when I say this, so I could be very easily wrong when I say this. But I think meniscus is like one of the like you can recover faster from it than like an ACL or an MCL, or something like that. I mean, I know it's around the same region in the knee. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, but I think if you tear that one, I think there's like a faster recovery period. Again, could be completely wrong with that. But again, for a guy, of his size, he was pretty durable the previous 2 years. But again, the thing with him is it's not like the regular season. Like, yeah, I guess there's somewhat of a track record of him being durable, but then like toward the end of the season, heading into the playoffs, whatever the case is, he gets hurt, he misses time. Like, that's been the biggest bugaboo of his career, and it's one of the bigger reasons why Philadelphia hasn't advanced past the second round in the Joel Embiid era, let alone since I think it was like 2000 was like the last time that or 2001, whatever that was. The last time that they actually advanced past the second round of postseason. Like, they just haven't had the type of success that you would expect them to have with a guy like Joel Embiid. I mean, we can have all of our thoughts about Joel Embiid. I'm not the biggest Joel Embiid guy personally, but like, I'm not going to deny that he's not like a good NBA player, and like especially in the regular season, he won an MVP. He was on track to lead the league in scoring, I think, again last year, before he got hurt, or he was at least toward the top of that leaderboard. Obviously, Nick Nurse, I think, is an upgrade over Doc Rivers, and I think he showed that last year with there were just times where they didn't have the sum of parts, but Nick Nurse was able to coach him to win or something like that. Like, they did get off to a slow start. They were able to, find their groove a little bit. Embiid gets hurt. They slip, they step back, they fall to 7 in the East. They beat my beloved Heat in the play-in game after trailing by double digits. Obviously, Jimmy gets hurt in the first quarter, this, that, the other. But they were able to, still make the play. They put together a very entertaining series against New York, even though they came up just short. There were a couple guys on their team that I liked last year, like for example, like obviously Tyrese Maxey, we talked about him. He's an ascending star. He actually might. You could probably make an argument for him being the best player on the team, even though I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But like a guy like Kelly Oubre, like he was a guy that stepped up a lot last year. I mean, obviously there were different points in time where a guy like Paul Reed. I mean, I know he's no longer there, but like guys like Paul Reed like stepped up in certain times. They picked up Kyle Lowry off the buyout market, middle of the season. He had his moments, of course. Like obviously Nick Batum, he stuck a dagger in my heart during the playing game. He had like, I don't know, 1, 2, like 7 billion threes against Miami to ignite that comeback and ignite that win. So like they had some contributing role pieces. Again, a lot of roster turnover in the sense like they got Caleb Martin in the offseason for I think it was like 35, 36 million, whatever it was. They get Andre Drummond, they get Eric Gordon, they get Reggie Jackson, they get Yabu Sele, who was playing overseas the past couple of years and then he, put together a phenomenal Olympics. They draft Jared McCain, they draft Adam Bona, who I was a big fan of as like a second round center prospect. He's athletic as hell, even though he's a little bit on the older side of things. Like there was a lot of roster turnover with this team last year. They did bring back Kelly Oubre, they did bring back KJ Martin. Like they brought back Kyle Lowry, they brought back a few of these guys, but there is a lot of roster turnover with this team, and I'm just interested to see how this develops over 70 or 82 games.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be real interesting to see how this Sixers team plays out, especially with the injuries. And now, like something I did know, like something I wanted to talk more about was the kind of like the Paul George move, since we're talking about the turnover and some of the new guys they brought in. But I will say, like, even somebody else who kind of, like, I would say flew under the radar, especially like halfway through the season when they brought in Buddy Hield, kind of help with that shooting and whatnot. Like he caught fire in the postseason, even though he was sitting out like most of the games. But like a couple of those games against the Knicks, like he was knocking down shots. I think even in the clincher, he was knocking down shots. So obviously he went to Golden State, but yeah, like it's real intriguing to kind of see, because now like Embiid with like obviously his lower leg injuries and everything. And like every time, like if I'm a Sixers fan, I see him leave his feet, I'm grimacing a little bit. Like there was that play where he did like a self lob in that Knicks series and he dunked all over, I think, on Anunoby, but then he immediately falls to the ground and starts grasping his knee. It's like I want to know how to react to that. Um, but now I wanted to ask you about bringing in Paul George on, I believe it was like that 4-year deal. I forget like the exact number and everything, but PG is not in his 20s anymore. I think he's in his I think he's in his mid 30s now. And like, he's 34. He's going to be 35 in May. So I wanted to ask you, like, obviously PG is still a very good player, but obviously he's not like Oklahoma City Paul George at this point, age and probably even at talent level. But I wanted to ask you like what you felt about the move, and you think like this kind of like puts like, does it like raise the Sixers ceiling? Does it just increase their floor? Like what I want to hear like what was going through your mind and how you feel about PG like entering the fold.
I'm not high on this at all.
Very fair.
I'm not. Again, like it's the durability. Like this feels like, I mean, I say this like in a slightly disrespectful way. This feels like such a 76ers move. Like you getting a guy who's entering his age 34 season, you're paying him the max. He already has a hyperextended knee, one that he missed like 2 or 3 weeks of 2 years ago in before the playoffs. Like it's hard for me to see this ending well. And I say this like Paul George is a good player. He's a good player. He's going to be their best wing defender. He's going to be a guy who obviously can get you a bucket when you need him to get him a bucket at certain points. Like he's still a solid player. I'm not trying to say he's not. But he's also never available. Or at least in the moments where you need him to be available, he doesn't typically have the track record of being available. And sometimes with him, it's a mindset, like not the availability part, but like there are times, like again, I'm nitpicking like regular season samples. Like there are times in a regular season where he doesn't remember how good he actually is. And if you're that fan base isn't going to be kind to you if you don't know that. Like that's just again nitpicking sample. Like there are just times where he may be the best player on the floor, but he'll play like he's the third best player or the fourth best player. Paul George, again, he's a good player, but sometimes with him it's a mindset. Sometimes he's not. I think he's lost some juice defense. Like I still think he can defend, but I still think he's lost some juice defensively. With all these, knee injuries and whatnot, like that stuff takes a wear and tear on you over time. You're gonna lose juice because of that. Like that's just the reality situation. And like you're signing him to a 4-year max while you have Joel Embiid, who's entering his age 30 season. Yes, I know they're going to prioritize health through him throughout the season, but that doesn't always guarantee. The Clippers just did that for 5 years with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They prioritized their health by, sitting him back to back, doing that, this, that, and the other, trying to load manage him, and yet it never worked. It never worked. And so I can't guarantee it's going to work with Philadelphia. And when it matters most in the East with the Knicks, with a team that I think is ascending like the Magic or like over time, I just don't know if that's actually going to work. Like you signed him to this 4-year max, but you really only have like 1 or 2 years to get this to win a title at least. Like, because that's what you're getting him for. If you're not getting him to win a title, then what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so it's just like I guess I'm not high on it from that angle. Is like obviously this could potentially, if they play, 60, 65, 70 games apiece, which is unlikely, both of them at least, which you can say is unlikely. If they both do that, then yeah, of course it raises their floor. Of course it may raise their ceiling in the sense that they get a 2 seed instead of a 5 seed or a 6 seed or a 7 seed last year. Like it raises their floor from that angle. Like Nick Nurse is a good coach. He can scheme up stuff, especially defensively. Like that stuff, not a problem. If they play 60, 65, 70, whatever. But you still got to win a championship with this core. Maxey, I'm not worried about Maxey. I'm worried about the other two guys. Maxey, I'm fine with. But you got to win a title in this window, and I just don't think you can right now. It's more of like I want to see it, but like I'm not until I see it, I'm not gonna believe it. That's kind of where my mind's at right now with this team.
Yeah, like I'm with you. I think this is like, even though it was signed for a 4-year contract, this is more like a 2-year deal because like Paul George, like he may still be productive on like that in second half of that contract, but like you're gonna be paying a dude who's 37, 38 years old, like 40 plus million a year, like
it's gonna be 60. Dang near 60. Like that's somewhat like just looking at his contract right now, his final 2 years of that contract. Or I mean it's gonna around like 55 mil.
Yeah.
54.1 in 26-27, and then about 57 million, 56.6 in 27-28, the last year of his deal.
That's just the state of the game. That's so bizarre. Like he's getting paid nearly 60. I was saying 40 and I thought I was being generous. Nah, 60. But again, still it's like you look at his stats in the Clippers for his final year, and he was averaging like, I mean, he was doing Paul George things. Obviously, he's not just trying to pull up the numbers here, but he averaged pretty much, like I'm rounding him off here, but he averaged 23, 5, and 4 with around 2 steals a game. And he was all-star and all this other stuff. So like the problem isn't that like Paul George is a bad player. And in fact, like it's like, at least to me, he still looks like a good fit on this team. But I just think it's like, it seems like the Sixers were more hell bent on trying to get a star like to bring in, compared, because like you saw the whole Clippers situation, because if the Clippers were playing ball with him, he would have just went back to LA. But the Clippers were like, we're not giving you that long-term deal again, because like we gave it to you and Kawhi already, and you guys haven't pulled up your end of the bargain. But like with Kawhi, it was kind of different because I'm pretty sure they value Kawhi Leonard a lot more. Like, at least by comparison, they valued Kawhi more than Paul George, and Paul George was brought in because Kawhi wanted to play with him. But to the point of like, do I see this team winning a championship? Even though that's the expectation, that it just doesn't seem likely, especially with the state of the because I don't see them like even if they at all are healthy, I don't see them being a team like the Celtics. I don't see them. I feel like they'll like these guys can still remain competitive, and of course they're going to be in the postseason, so anything can happen. But I don't see them beating the Celtics. I don't see them beating the Knicks. I don't see them like. I mean, they can probably get past like some of the bottom seeded teams like Orlando and whatnot, but those guys are up on the uptick. Like, do I see them beating Cleveland? I don't know, maybe, but at the same time, it's like Paul George is great, but like I guess like to your point when it came to like a mindset thing, like he can pull shit like he did in the Mavericks series when he brought like I think it was what's his face former like he was a former Heat guy, very athletic, Derek Jones Jr.
Oh yeah.
I think it was him in the corner, and he was rocking him to sleep, took that step back and just hit it in the corner over. It might have been Derek Jones, but I don't know. But like it was pretty much to put the Clippers ahead. I forget what game it was, but he was in the right corner and dribble, step back, chucks it up. Literally, it was like the same spot. Like what if he took it in the bubble, he was hitting inside backboard, but he laces it. But then also there's other things like when he was pandemic P, like especially that's what I see in the postseason. Like Paul George can be a proven postseason performer, or he can be somebody who's like in the background sometimes. It's like what kind of version are you going to get when the postseason comes around? And it's like he's not getting any younger, and like the reliance on like not even aging stars, but just like some like putting so much stress on somebody like Paul George, and then like really contingent on Joel Embiid's health. Like a lot of this stuff's going to be taken under consideration. Like Tyrese Maxey averaged 26 a game last year. He's probably going to in all seriousness, I could see him averaging 30, especially if Embiid's out for a long period of time. I could see that, especially if he's not playing back to backs. Man's probably going to average 30. And like seeing Paul George a part of this team, like this team can be really good, but like I think like the window is now congested to 2 years. I don't think that's happening. Like maybe a conference finals, but like you guys are still struggling to get out of the second round. It's like
Right. It feels like such a four-letter network thing for me to say, like, get to a conference finals first before I talk about a finals. Like, that's like, again, like, that's just kind of like where my head's at. Because, again, I just don't see this team being a top tier team in the East, specifically when it matters most. I mean, they're capable of it, but again, you got to put it together first. And like, I don't know, I don't see anything to suggest that will actually happen until it actually happens. Like, Nick Nurse comes from the tips tree of I'm going to play my guys a whole lot of minutes. That's just going to be the reality of the situation. Like if you go back and look back, like the teams that he was coaching in Toronto, like OG, Scotty, like Fred VanVleet, they were all like leading the league in minutes or like top 10. Like that was just the reality of the situation. Like that's how Nick Nurse is as a head coach. And again, he comes from the tips tree of that, even in the regular season. Obviously, Joel Embiid, again, he's not going to play back-to-backs. He's already come out and said that. They're going to be taking this new normal approach to, his long-term health and his load management because they want him available for the playoffs. Whether that works or not is a completely different, story. It may work, it may not work. Paul George, again, he probably had his healthiest season last year when he was in Los Angeles.
Game. Yep.
Yeah, he was at healthiest season. Obviously, he got hurt toward the end. Like healthiest season of his career, or at least his Clippers career. Yeah, Clippers career. Fine, that may happen again. And injuries are, as much as we're trying to predict them, sometimes it's just luck, depending on what the kind of injury that it is. It could be a freak injury, it could be like a soft tissue, whatever the case is. Caleb Martin, he had knee tendinosis last year. He missed, a chunk of games at the beginning of the season because he had knee tendinosis. He's also playing a position to where he played. I get they're going to presumably start him at the 4. They signed him in the offseason to kind of be that 4. He was a 4 2 years ago when he was with the Heat after PJ Tucker left. That took a lot of wear and effing tear on his body because he didn't play as well. And then they put him back on the bench, and obviously The rest is history with how he, closed the season, the Eastern Conference
On
Finals,
fire.
which I'm sure you very much remember. But like there was a lot of wear and tear, and he's 6'5" with knee tendinosis in his knee. That's, I don't want to say a red flag, but that's certainly a yellow flag. Then you have guys like Reggie Jackson. You have Andre Drummond. You have Eric Gordon, who is entering his age 36 season. Like, he's obviously not the youngest duck. He's not the youngest duck in the pond. Like, he's just not. If guys go down, they don't really have the. I mean, obviously, again, I like Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin's my guy. I mentioned Kelly Oubre Jr. earlier. KJ Martin's certainly a guy that can fill in and give you some good minutes. Jared McCain's obviously a guy who they've raved about in camp. I think he can give you some good minutes. But in general, they don't have many answers if a guy like Paul George does go down. If a guy like Joel Embiid does go down, especially when it matters most, like, yeah, you have guys who can step in, but is that are you gonna go to an Eastern Conference final? Like, I just don't know. There's too many question marks around this team for me to completely, answer that question. Kyle Lowry isn't the youngest duck in the pond either. He's going to be entering his age 38 season. I didn't even mention him before. Like, again, you have guys who are experienced vets who obviously have had great careers, like Gordon, like Lowry. Reggie Jackson's going to be entering his age 34 season. He's not young. Like, you have guys who are experienced and who are older. Again, like, how reliable will these guys actually be? I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not saying that to be, an asshole. I just don't know.
I mean, you're bringing in a bunch of like veteran guys, a lot of like former all stars. Like a lot of these guys are kind of like on the back end of their careers, like Kyle Lowry. And you got PG, who's still good, but I mean, like that's kind of like just like the like just the atmosphere of the NBA now. You can be like in your mid 30s, still be like a good to elite level player. Like you look at guys like KD and whatnot. Like obviously, I'm not comparing PG to KD, um, but like that's just the state of the NBA now. So like guys like this, guys like who have that name value, like a PG or a James Harden, like these guys are still going to be getting paid X amount of dollars while still playing a premier role on whatever team they're on, even if they're in their mid 30s. Even though I should be saying like they're washed because these guys aren't in any sense of the word, but also it's like you're not at that point. You should be getting paid like 50 plus million a year and you're going into age 34. But I mean, that's just how the NBA is. But yeah, like to your point, it's like this. It seems like this team is like talking about like when you mentioned yellow flags and like when it came to injuries and stuff. It's like when there's smoke, there's fire. So it's like if there's already like you already have Paul George doing day to day, and then like Embiid, obviously we talked about him, and it's like if you have to put so much stock in the health of a lot of your guys in your rotation, it's not a good sign. Or at least like it's a very it's a type of situation you're not good. It's going to be very hard for you to come out in terms of like a happy ending, you know. So it's real, like at least for me, obviously like Celtics defending champions, all that. But like they have depth and they have guys who can like pretty much like it's like next man up kind of mentality. And like they have guys that can do that if somebody has to sit out. But like for the Sixers, I just like it seems like one guy goes down, like this team goes from like a perennial like playoff team to are they gonna make the play in type of deal? Because like they have the roster to be like, hey, we can make the playoffs, but like, oh man, Joel's out for like 20 games out of the season. PG, he's missing games here and there. Tyrese Maxey got hurt. No, like it's like I'm not wishing this on
Yeah.
anyone. I hope they stay healthy and all that. I hope like a lot of this stuff doesn't come back to bite them in the rear. But it's like it's real hard to like say like we cannot ignore this type of stuff.
Yeah. That's, I mean, what are we can, I guess, segue into this, but like, where's your standing with them? Like, where do you see them finishing in the East? I mean, I know we kind of already talked about their outcome, at least for this year, but where do you see their standing?
I I can see them around like 4 through 6. because like you kind of like have to look at like Milwaukee. Like I don't think they're not better than the Celtics. They're not better than the Knicks. Like Milwaukee, I know they're getting older, but like I don't know if you can say that like they're I guess like not back and forth because at least Giannis, he's gonna play a majority of the season, even though he got hurt in the playoffs last year. But I'll say the Bucks are better. Like I think they're gonna be fighting for like those middling seeds with like Cleveland and Orlando and like some of these other teams that are out there. And it's like for me, it's like I don't anticipate Paul George to be like, oh, he's not going to play north of 60 games this year because like I hope he can replicate what he did last year because if you're getting that Paul George who can play at least like 60 to 70 games and he can average 23 for you, which I still think he can do in the Sixer system because he's going to be like the third option to second option at times, especially if Embiid's going to be out. Like you don't need Joel Embiid to go for 35 a game like he did last year whenever he played. So he probably still get that in his sleep. But like what I'm saying is like you have another guy who can kind of take the load off. Like he's an upgrade over Tobias Harris. That's for damn sure. But
yeah, Tobias Harris losing Tobias. I didn't even mention that earlier. Losing Tobias Harris is like addition by subtraction, just in that context.
Yeah.
He needs to go to a spot. I mean, he went to a spot, but he needed a spot where there's just not very many expectations and he can cook for a little bit and rehabilitate his value.
Yeah, just talking about like the Pistons for a second. I think that's going to be like a great place for him, especially like for a veteran presence. But that's a topic for a different day. But I'm happy he's in Detroit. I'll say that. But yeah, like going back to like just the Sixers and like this team like on paper can be good. Like this team, like I feel like PG can get another All-Star team under his belt. And I think like Tyrese Maxey, he's gonna really like he arrived like over the last couple of years. Like last year was the true like full on breakout into like stardom. And like I mean, it seems like eventually somebody was gonna like peak up, like somebody was gonna like be like the number 2 for Embiid. At least you have somebody to look forward to over the next few years as Embiid gets older and whatnot. Like Tyrese is going to be there, and like they have him on that big extension and everything. Like he's not going anywhere, and the dude's only 23 years old, 23, 24 years old. So, like they have the pieces to like go far, but again, it's just like I don't see them being like at best they're a second round exit again because like until I see them actually win in the second round, like I can't say oh they're going to the finals, you're going to the conference finals, nothing like that. It's just like you see like the talent and the teams ahead of them. Like I can't put them ahead of those guys. Like we'll see come springtime like where they land and everything, but I just can't say like these guys can get past the second round no matter who they run into. But I guess it's all about luck of the draw with injuries and all that other good stuff. But I'm curious to hear what like you have to say about that. Like where do you see the Sixers kind of like?
This is a hot take because I know I have them in the playing game again.
Yeah, you have them in the playing again.
I do. I have them 7. I have Orlando, Indiana, Cleveland, all above them, plus Milwaukee.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Indiana. Like
again, I need to see their durability to trust it.
They can't do this. They can't crumble under pressure. Especially
they were a playing team last year. I mean, obviously Embiid only played 39 games. I don't think that's going to happen again. But I do think like again, a team like Orlando did get better. I think Milwaukee made a significant improvement around the fringes with Gary Trent, with Taurean Prince. I think Indiana is a team that I think I don't want to say takes a step back, but I'm just interested to see how what a full season of Siakam, Halliburton, what they look like. But and then Cleveland again, like they weren't a team that added a whole lot, but they were a team that got a new coach who I think is a better coach than the one that they previously had. Kenny Atkinson, I think, is an upgrade to player development. Schematically, stylistically, is better than Bickerstaff, who I also think is not a bad coach. And I know it's not as always simple as that because obviously a lot can happen, guys can get hurt, whatnot. But right now, as of this date, preseason, less than a week before the season starts, I do have them as a playing team. I do think the middle of the East is competitive, and so that's another reason where it's just like I think the Sixers will probably win, 47, 48, 49 games. But considering the bottom of the East is so detrimentally bad, I do think teams at the top are going to stack up more wins, like Boston, like New York. Like I think they're going to. That's an easy way for them to get wins because it's like the Nets are going to stink, the Wizards are going to stink. Some of these teams are just going to be flat out awful. I mean, Toronto's not going to be very good this year. I guess I'm not super high on Atlanta. I like some of the moves they did, but I'm not super high on them. I know I'm missing a team here that I just can't. I think I said the Hornets are going to be like okay, it's the Hornets, you know. Like some of these teams are going to stink and bottom out and whatnot, and I think that's just an opportunity for a team like Orlando, for a team like Indiana to stack a few more wins on their plate. Not that Philadelphia can't also do that because they very much can. But again, it all goes back to the durability. And I know they got Paul George for in games that Embiid does miss that you can go out and cook and we could still have a high floor and win games. But at the end, like, how am I going to rely on Paul George to even stay healthy in over an 82-game season? I can't. I genuinely can't. Right now, even though he did have one of the healthiest seasons of his career. Again, not saying a hyperextended knee right now means a whole lot because it may actually not, but he's already going to miss at least a week.
So, I mean,
I don't
know. It's a lot of questions, and like I can see them being like I could see them being in the same position as last year. Like I feel like they can even win the play-in and they can like make it to the playoffs that way. But then you're running into a buzzsaw between like facing New York again or running into the Celtics.
New York or Boston.
Yeah, so like, I mean, it's
I have them facing these Celtics in the playing game. No,
but you love that. And Miami like breaks the all-time win record in a season, you know.
Hey, I'm not going to complain. I can't say shit about durability because my team also can't stay durable. But at the same time, I need to see it from the team that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of questions for the Sixers, and then even going back to like Tyrese Maxey, he played 70 games this year, and then like it seems like obviously we're not asking guys to be like Iron Horse and like Iron Men be playing all 82 games, but like availability matters, and when like you're injury prone and like how this like core players can be, then like it's gonna reflect in like your record sometimes, you know. So so like I feel like it's gonna be like we're gonna see like some growing pains, and we're gonna like I just hope like they don't hit a stride and then an injury comes and then they come collapsing down. But like that may just be what ends up happening, because that's usually what happens when like certain teams that you look at and it's like how are they in the play-in? Like they're too good of a team to be in the play-in, like that kind of deal. It's like I guess like your Heat, for example, like those guys went from being number one in the East in 2022 and then they were fighting for their playoff lives in the play-in.
Fight for their damn life. 2 years in a row.
Yeah, so like it's that kind of thing, and it's like, you know, so it's going to be very intriguing to see how like the team kind of like shapes up throughout the season. But like, yeah, they could be in for a long year, especially if like the expectations are high, you know.
Right, and I think the expectations are high for them. Obviously, you get Paul George for a reason.
Yeah.
Again, none of this is to say that Paul George is a bad player, to say that he can't help you win games. None of this is to say that Joel Embiid is a bad player and can help you win games. None of this, obviously, I don't think Tyrese Maxey is a bad player. Some of the other guys, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., Jared McCain, Andre Drummond, Eric, like those guys can help you win games on certain nights.
But
no question about it.
Just need to see them suit up.
But I just need to see you stay healthy for an 82-game season, or for the most part, have some health luck. Obviously, Embiid's going to miss games here and there because that's what they want. They want to prioritize his long-term health. They want him healthy by mid-April. Is it going to work?
Yeah. Like I
don't know, man. If they injuries happen, like again, I'm not trying to predict injuries, but like I'm just more so speaking on track record of some of these guys. Yeah, they're best players.
If they can manage to make that happen, then I'd say look out. But even then, like when Embiid was healthy, like he was still getting bounced out in the second round. So like,
yeah, it was
ceiling in second round, floor is play-in exit. But I could see them being like at the very best, like they can be like a middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference. But like that's like I guess like in the best of times, I'd say. But
yeah. They might
But
just win 55 games and shut me up.
yeah,
But I want to see it first.
yeah. You got to put it in practice. Like
Yeah, I want to see it to believe it. Like,
looks good on paper, but
yeah.
I
And
would ask you
huh?
I would ask you what if you had kind of final thoughts of what you were anticipating for the season, but it just seems like for you it's the team looks good, but you just need to put it I want to see them win 50 games, 50 plus.
Especially the top of their team. Again, I'm not super high in their depth, but Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, Caleb, and Oubre, that's a fine starting lineup. You can win a shit ton of games with that starting lineup if they're healthy for 50, 60 games together. I don't think Andre Drummond is a bad piece. He was there a couple years ago. He did just fine with them. Jeremy McCain's a guy again that I liked out of college, out of Duke. I think I liked him more toward the end of the pre-draft process than I did at the start. Again, Eric Gordon can be a guy that can win you games. Kyle Lowry is a huge veteran piece that he's going to table set and he's going to help players out. Obviously, Adam Bono was the second round pick that I mentioned earlier, who is their third string center, but I still do think there might be times where they rely on him, especially in the games that Embiid's out. I like some of the pieces on this team, but again, I need to see what it looks like together for a prolonged period of time for me to really believe okay, this team can make an Eastern Conference Finals. This team can be a top 4 seed in the East. The top end talent, what it's like on paper is there. Sure. But you still got to play the games, man.
That is very
got to play the games.
That's very true.
If you don't play a game, you still got to play the games. That's the reality situation.
Matt, anything else for the Sixers this season, or for Sixers fans? Kind of just final thoughts. Anything else?
Be nice to Caleb Martin. Treat my guy Caleb Martin right. Caleb's my guy. Caleb's my dog. I feel like he's gonna help him win again. He's gonna help him win games as long as he's able to stay healthy.
Just keep him out of playing power forward for a long period of time.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best long-term plan for him, but maybe Nick Nurse has something else in mind. Nick Nurse is one of the smartest coaches in the league. Well, so I'm putting my trust in his hands for Caleb Martin and for what he has planned for him. But those are my final words.
Yeah, I'm praying for his health for your sake anyway. But guys, that's going to conclude 76ers NBA season preview. I've been Jiarmani. That's been Matt Hanifan. Please show support to Vendetta Sports Media on all social media. We got it on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Check out our YouTube videos. Check out vendettasportsmedia.com where you can stay up to date with all the latest sports. We got gaming. We got the NFL. We got the championship series in baseball. We got a lot of stuff cooking here. You guys want to be a part of it. We're growing something here. It's going to be fantastic, and it's just taking it day by day. So we appreciate any and all support, especially for all the offseason NBA previews and everything we got going on. Everybody here has been putting in so much work. So please, any and all support will be appreciated. But as always, guys, stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys next time.